Let's welcome you to this Local Voices Liberia Media Network podcast sponsored by Internews Liberia Media Development Program with funding from USAID. You can also download this podcast or listen to it again by going to our website www.localvoicesliberia.com or our Facebook page at Local Voices Liberia.
In September 2018, President George Manuel Weah signed the Local Government Act into law. While putting his signature on the act, President Weah described the law as a key component of his administration's development agenda. Policy experts later said that the signing into law of the act lays the foundation for tackling major reforms on local governance and decentralization in the country. About 2 months before the president signed the act into law, Local Voices Liberia organized a community media forum in Zorzor, Lofa County to gather views on the pros and cons of decentralization and how exactly Liberians in rural communities in Liberia want power to be decentralized. In this episode, we will take you through the community media forum to find out what people were thinking about decentralization before the passage of the act. But first, a little bit of traditional music from this part of Liberia.
Episode 3: Decentralization.
This is Zorzor City, the second largest in Lofa County, northern Liberia. Zorzor is a very busy town. Commercial activities never stops here. Farmers and traders of nearby villages and towns converge here every Thursday of the week to trade. To trade what? Some trade in farm produce, others bring goods from Monrovia and other parts of the country to trade right here in this part of Lofa County. Today is Thursday. It is one of many weekly market days. Hundreds of people have already started gathering in this market, which is just a stone throw away from where we are standing right now. I can see pickups and station wagon taxis covered with dust and stocked with varieties of goods heading toward the market. Some of these vehicles are carrying vegetables, they're carrying fruits, palm oil, dry meat, you just name it. These things are all among some of the goods stocked on these vehicles, carrying stuff to the market over the last couple of minutes. I've just been speaking to a local merchant who tells me that traders most often cross the border from the Republic of Guinea to do business right here in Zorzor, Lofa County. Matter of fact, Guinea, the border with Guinea is just a couple of miles away from this city. So clearly, this is a very busy city. Economic activities here is one way or the other booming, if you like, but infrastructure is lacking. And many of the people here claim that it is because the central government makes all of the decisions that are not informed by the views of people here in this part of the country. They think that this city and many other cities outside of Zorzor County can become better if residents participate in most of the political and economic decisions often being made, but made just only in Monrovia. So my team and I, we are here to get the views of locals in Zorzor City, Lofa County. We want to get their views on decentralization. We will shortly hold a community media forum to hear exactly what people here in Zorzor think about decentralization. But first, let's hear from some of the people on the streets. What are their views on decentralization?
Decentralization, we're hearing about it, but we are not feeling the impact really. If it comes to what they mean by decentralization, we are not feeling the impact.
It means that the government of the people must be all over, and the people must elect their own people in their own locality and be able to work with those people. It will actually foster development, because when the people elect their own people, they decide who they want, and they all will be willing to work with that person. But whenever people are appointed, they listen to those who appoint them and not those that they work with. So I believe that when they are elected, it will help to carry out sound development, because the people themselves will be willing to work with those that they have elected.
Yeah, that would be one of the good things, because the time that the person is supposed to be there as a superintendent, the time when that time reach, then we go a number of voting. But that would be good, because if the superintendent they appointing today, no voting, tomorrow, they can get the person from there.
When people elect their own leaders, they will have trust in those leaders. And if these leaders also have a mind for their people, they can work towards development. By voting for people is not the answer to development. It's not the answer to peace. Peace comes from an individual.
So you've been listening there to some residents of Zorzor, Lofa County. They're giving their take on decentralization. So people here now in Zorzor City have a certain strong feeling about decentralization. We also expect the CMF to probably expand their understanding about this topic. So the projector is being set for the screening of Development Matters TV program on decentralization. This short debate will give people in this hall a sense of how Liberians in Monrovia are discussing the issue of decentralization. And that's exactly what we expect this forum to bring to life. Discussions surrounding disadvantages as well and advantages. We expect people here to have their say as we move into this community media forum.
Hello and welcome to Development Matters.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Let's Debate It on Development Matters. I'm your moderator, Councillor Ruth Chapa, one of 3 commissioners of the Law Reform Commission. For several years now, there has been much discussion about decentralizing our national government and devolving some of the powers now concentrated in Monrovia to the counties and local governments. In fact, a draft local government law that calls for far-reaching devolution of powers to the counties and cities and the elections of superintendents, mayors, and other local government officials have been before the national legislature for a while now. Thus, this raises the question, is decentralization a good policy objective? Will decentralization achieve the results its advocates claim, or will it add to the many problems that hamper good governance, as its opponents argue? We will attempt to answer these questions today by debating the motion, Decentralization, a necessary and important governmental reform. Appearing in support of the affirmative today is Mr. Boto Zina, who has a master's in urban and regional planning. Appearing for the negative is Professor Francis Mawia, Director of the Graduate School of Regional Science at the University of Liberia. So we should begin now with Mr. Zina in support of the motion, Decentralization, an important governmental reform. Mr. Zina, take it off.
Decentralization brings about transparency. We are aware that transparency is one of the issues that we have been toying with all across this country. When people vote their leaders, the leaders become more accountable to them. And because they vote their leaders, they have the authority to question those leaders when they are not delivering. When that is happening at the local level, it will transcend to the national level. It brings about legitimacy. When people are elected, they have a responsibility to respond to the needs of the people. And if they don't meet the needs and expectations of those that elect them, of course, they have the authority and the power to demand actions. That is missing in Liberia currently. People who run our subnational governments and administrative locales, like the superintendents, the mayors across this country, including the mayor of Monrovia, are not elected. And as such, who do they owe their loyalty to? To the presidency of this country. If the next administration comes and these people are appointed again, their accountability will be to the president that will be elected and not to the people that they should be governing. And we believe this is high time that this should change. And it's one of the tenets of decentralization, and that's why we are making the case now. That's our local leaders should be elected. And when they are elected, we're going to call upon them, we're going to have our local town hall meeting, and they can answer the questions that we have. If we are not satisfied, we have the tool to take the actions consistent with the process and the tenets of decentralization and democracy. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zina. Professor Mawie, your turn.
I feel that election in itself does not bring about effectiveness of government or efficiency. One can be even appointed and be very effective based on vetting, by maybe civil service or so. Decentralization has its own fault. For instance, you in Liberia advocating for political decentralization, administrative decentralization, and fiscal decentralization. If you create, and overlap government functions, who's going to pay for the newly created positions and all you're going to create in the various counties, in the 15 counties? You are telling us that we should have 15 government because you want to even create a district assembly that will be in confrontation with the national legislature that you have already elected. Where is the capacity? Where do you have the capacity from to mend the kind of government that you want to operate? And I still feel that it is not the answer to corruption. It is not the answer to the suffering and the underdevelopment that we are going through in this country. I think the answer is to tighten our belt, straighten up our system that is already existing and make it very functional so that, we will have small government, small and effective government that can run this country instead of overlapping and creating more problem for ourselves when it comes to decentralizing and creating more jobs that we don't have money to pay. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Maria. We take questions from our studio audience.
All right, this question is for you, Mr. Zina. Decentralization comes along with a lot of bureaucracy within the counties. Where will we have the capacity to drive this bureaucracy?
80% of our people live in the rural area, and they lack the capacity. But also interesting to note that almost all the resources that the previous administration have managed come from those areas that 80% of the people you talk about reside. And it was also interesting to note that they have little or no say in what happens to the resources in terms of allocation, in terms of it trickling down. They don't feel the impact of it.
Yes, Professor Mawie, this question is for you. For 170 years now, we've been having a centralized government, and we've been struggling with corruption and unemployment. Don't you think now it's time that we try something new, like a decentralized government?
There is no need to think that if you devolve power to the people, it will fight corruption. I think it will breed more corruption. I think what we need to do is to strengthen, the system that we have to make it very effective, so that corruption will be punishable. Whether you take it locally or centrally, corruption needs to be fought. At the extreme level.
There you go. Thank you very much to our studio audience, our radio and television audience, and also a big thank you to our eminent debaters. I've been your moderator, Councillor Ruth Chapa, and goodbye.
I talking about my unborn future. No matter what you ask, let my message will reach you. Corruption killing all, we not satisfied. Make my heart burn slow, whatever I testify.
So the audience here in Zorzor Lofa County in this hall have just witnessed the decentralization debate. So they will now basically have the understanding of what this discussion is, what are the pros and cons of the discussion after watching the Development Matters debate. Right now, the stage has been set for the panel discussion in this hall, where 4 persons from this community, from this Zorzor City. So the pros and cons, we expect the panelists here to have their say on decentralization. Whether their opinions will be divided as well, I don't know.
All right, so the first panelist will be Mr. Tanu Bobo. Mr. Bobo, you are welcome to our table. Next is Mrs. Annie G. Weye. We have Mr. Varsity Wama and Pastor Glorious Benson. So you see, we try to get it going, 2 males, 2 females. So Tanu, you're going to give us your side of the opportunity, challenges, policy of decentralization. Welcome.
Decentralization is very, very important. It's guiding on to the development of this country that have been falling behind for 170 years now without development. Growth without development. That's what we've been going into. So we can't continue to do the same old thing, the same old way, and getting the same old result. We have to now have alternative means of doing things. And one alternative means of doing it is to have the local people's voices being heard. They must take full participation in the decisions that affect them. What is the way forward? We must elect our own people who will be directly accountable to us, knowing fully well that if they fail on that, they can be removed by our votes, by our power, and they can be replaced according to our will. They must serve us by our wishes. And the way to do it is decentralization. Thank you so much.
Next is Mrs. Woye.
Well, my point on decentralization is that we know very well that you cannot have a democratic, state or government without decentralization. I don't really see that working very well. But the reality is that it's practical. You cannot say that it's democratic when the people are not involved, when they are not interested, when they cannot be assigned, when their power is not handed over to them.
Thank you. So the next set of panelists will go to Varsity Wama. V. Varsity Wama is the youth president of Sarai District. He's going to take the stage now in this debate. Welcome.
Let's first look at decentralization in our own understanding that is transferring a power of a public position or public authority from the central government to the local authorities. But now, as we at the local governance side feeding the effect of the decentralization process, I'll say no. Reasons are very common. If we should have a decentralization policies or decentralization process in our country, in Liberia, this contemporary centuries of our time, we should take in consideration few things that need to effectively affect the decentralization process to the people. One, if we must have effective decentralization policies in our country, then the people themselves must make the choice of their people. One, if you have a superintendent of Lofa County, the people of Lofa County should determine to vote for that superintendent. Then we have actual voice be heard at the level of the central government.
Thank you. Your Honor. Thank you. Be President Wamo. All right. The last but not the least is Pastor Glorious Benson.
From my understanding, I'm in favor of decentralization. One, let us look at another definition for decentralization. It is also the practices of government to be closer to citizens and make them more aware of cost and benefit. Decentralization, it is the right of the government to get closer to citizens. Are your government closer to you today? Those that you elect, those that are empowered today, they are closer to you. They are taking advices from you. They are getting your point of view today. They are not. So I'm in favor of decentralization. Decentralization is very, very important to us. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks so much. So let's give hands of applause for all 4 of them again. Next is to ask your questions but at least we'll take the first two from so.
Papa, son of Lofa County, to be precise, Zorzor District, Zorzor City. Mine is not really question, but it's just a recommendation broadcasting those that talk about decentralization. So I heard some panelists up there saying that it should have salt. So it should not be salt, it should be 4 ministries should come to the rural area. You see, for the government, you have 15 county, only 15 county, you have 9 community college in 9 county. So decentralization, if you have, for example, agriculture, ministry here in Lofa County, for example, all those that are part of that ministry need to carry on development. You see Chinche, you see power, water, you see electricity, you see good road, market to farm road, and what have you. So I think decentralization is very important for us as Liberians. Thank you.
I'm Otelo P. Dennis. Now my question has to do with, we have elected our representatives, senators, and within the counties we find ourselves or districts, we're not really feeling their impact. And the process is decentralized. So what gives us the ground now that if we elect chiefs, district commissioner, major, or mayoress into this district that was rest assured having development? Thank you.
All right. Thank you for that question. I want to believe it is out of our concern. But to answer it, we feel that the issue of representative, as I said previously, is about electoral district. Remember, the administrative district representations are through the city mayor and the commissioner, the paramount chief. Those are more of local. And so if the people up there feel that their power is not limited to a particular administrative district, because of that they cannot be accountable to us, we think that the reason why County City is being marginalized by them is because they feel that the local authorities here are not elected. And because they are not elected, they are limited. So when they do their robbing at the administrative level, central management level, they come and give us straight order and measurement that they think will fit in us. But what we think is, if our local authorities here are elected, electoral officers have power, they have strength. They can be able to measure strength, we can push it, we can make them speak. Their process will be heard. And because their process will be heard, and because they are all elected officers, it will give us the opportunity to push more further.
Thank you. On a friendly note, my brother, if you elect your clan chief, your paramount chief, your district commissioner, you are doing it at a very local level. They become very much accessible to you. You can walk to them at any time and tell them what your views are.
Thank you. Okay, we'll take the next two from the side. Don't come back this way. Yeah.
I'm Julius Alexander Sa. For me, I already support decentralization. I will be coming because I know all the ministries that are in Monrovia have been represented in various counties. But are they invited? And are they straightening the process? Are they carrying on monitoring evaluation? Because since 2013, there have been no county sitting. Decentralization is not the way forward or development.
Because when we talk about decentralization, we are talking about the relationship between the government and the citizen. I want to know, Honorable, if we are talking about decentralization, why is it that the federal leadership, which is the representative, the senator, when they pass budget, they cannot come down to the local people to give us information? And you're saying that we should have decentralization. If so, the commissioner that have been elected, the city mayor, the majority have been elected. What are the information that we're sharing to that hall to come and share with the citizen? So if things go on like that, will decentralization take place or it will not take place?
So in short, what difference will it make? Is what you say?
Yeah, I'm saying what is the difference?
All right, thank you.
Right, that is okay.
Yeah, thank you. I share your concern, but I have a different approach to it. I believe that it's not because somebody's father got drowned in a river, so it means that that person must not drink water. The issue here, the senators and representatives are not coming to you because of the same thing we're discussing. They've been centralized people. Our constitution provides that Liberia is a unitary state divided into some political divisions. And these people at the level of central government representing you. And because they're not responding to you, that is the reason behind the issue of decentralization. To limit that thing, that they should be responding to you. So you must have people that are very close to you. Now, if my town chief is not telling me what the town looks like, I still expect my father to tell me what the house looks like. And that is the issue of this decentralization. If you elect your commissioners, your superintendent, your primary chief, who will not be under the direct influence of the people up there, but they will be directly responsive to you. Trust you me that things will change. It might appear to be difficult, but it's easy. If they have been tested in other countries, it's working.
All right, there's to buttress what my colleague has said. The issue of filling the gap of development depends on us. Let's say it this way. You cannot have a right without responsibility. If you are asking for your right of decentralization so that the opportunity will reach to your level, you should be thinking of what your responsibilities are. We have responsibility in development. We won't sit there and wait for central government in as much as we may be given the opportunity to elect our local authorities and expect that the national government will bring straight development and put it to our doorstep. That's why we should have self-initiative. We should get involved. We should start thinking what we will
So
do.
watching the exchanges amongst these residents is very interesting. The comments by the participants and suggestions by the 4 panelists sum up the importance of decentralization for people here in Lofa County. Interestingly, many people are most concerned about electing local officials instead of the current appointments of superintendents, mayors, and commissioners by the president. The argument proffered here by these panelists also point to the lack of transparency and accountability. Some say decentralization gives power to the people, and these people will hold local government officials accountable for whatever decisions they make, and that will be binding upon them because that will be the request of the people instead of getting the political instructions from Monrovia.
Again, thanks so much for the wonderful sort of it. Everybody spoke of how to see it and how it can work, how it can work in our society. What do we do to make it work? So now, we'll let you speak at least 1 minute each to wrap it up.
This recommendation I want to make to our central government is this. I want all the ministry that is in Monrovia to get sub-branches in every county, in every district, for us to get sub-branches that will get access to that. We'll not be able to leave from here to go Monrovia to do what we're supposed to do, to suffer, to spend a lot of money. So I'm appealing to the government to have sub-branches in every part of our nation.
Thank you very much. Like the colleague said, in order for the decentralization process to be effective, government need to make sure that their branches of governments are decentralized in all of our 50 counties across the country.
And I believe the challenges are that one of which has to do with the central administration. It is going to be very challenging because people out there will have small fear. They don't want to lose all the power they have because they will entrust us here to elect our local government. And so when they do that, they may not have the direct rights to be able to hijack all the rights in importing decisions within our local environment. But the opportunity there is that it will help us to make impact. But then my recommendation is that central government see it necessary to support the process of decentralization so as to enable the citizens to find themselves responsible for decisions they make and they can be able to move forward with their own productivity. Thank you.
Decentralization has a lot of prospects, but it also has some challenges as it stands right now. I'm calling on this government to include budgetary allocation that will empower the people to vote regularly for the local government official. We don't need to have city mayors and district commissioners and superintendents being appointed. They're not going to be answerable to us. Trust you me, they will not answer to you because you have no role to play in their own position. But if you have to have a role play in their position, you must elect them, then they become directly accountable to you. So we want to call on central government in its proposed agenda to include budgetary allocation so that in the next time to come, in the very near future to come, we can have elections for our local government officials.
So that was 2 months ago in Lofa County before the signing into law of the Local Government Act, a law that firmly supports decentralization. It was an interesting experience traveling to Zorzor Lofa County to witness Liberians in that part of the country express their views on decentralization and the impact it would have on the development of this country. We are now here in Monrovia City, where a lot of decisions are made. Almost all of the political decisions are made. Economic decisions are made. Social decisions that affect people in other parts of the country are made. I've now been joined by my colleague Henry Boluma, who has been with me on this long trip across the country holding these community media forums. And Henry has a very good understanding of local governance because he has reported on several of these issues as a community radio journalist based in Lofa County. Matter of fact, Bapolu shares a common boundary with Lofa County.
Bapolu was once referred to as Lower Lofa when it was under Lofa County. So in 2001, Bapolu got her county status, and since then they've been operating as independent county in this country. People that were living in Lower Lofa at the time now called Bapolu County, they felt that all of the decisions were being taken only in Vonjema City. In fact, if you were in Zorzor and you needed to go to Vonjema to get your check, to even go there for court issues, you needed to come to Monrovia and get a car before you pass through Mangibi County, Bon County, before you enter Salaya District, also before you go to Lofa County. So the people in that part of the country at the time, they felt that they were so marginalized, development were not really flowing there. Road issue was one of the key things again that they also talk about. Even the health facility issue as well, they also talk about that. So because of that, in many issues that they felt that they were being marginalized of to be a county on her own. And so based on that today, Bapolu is on her own and is a clear example of decentralizing Liberia. So today we see Bapolu County, Bapolu can boast of some infrastructure, other infrastructures that they can boast out. Health facility, Chijalalo Medical Health Center now is a hospital. And the 6 administrative districts, they got their own district seat, and they got their own commissioners. They got 2 statutory district superintendents as well in Bapolu County. So,
however, one other sticking issue is a possible referendum on Article 56 of the Constitution. That article gives the president the power to appoint all superintendents who shall work at the will and pleasure of the president. This is another eminent debate that needs to be encouraged. And I guess legal experts will generate the desired constitutional issues for public discourse. Until the debate reaches a point of contention, we are watching closely. Thanks for listening to this Development Matters podcast series produced by Local Voices Liberia. I'm Alpha Duffy. Bye-bye.
This Local Voices Liberia Media Network podcast sponsored by Internews Liberia Media Development Program with funding from USAID. You can also download this podcast or listen to it again by going to our website www.localvoicesliberia.com or our Facebook page at Local Voices Liberia.